All right, what's up, y'all? I'm the stone that the builder refused. I'm Asheru from the Unspoken Herd, Washington, D.C., Guerrilla Arts. You know, I grew up in D.C., so I'm from a go-go-centered kind of city, even though we did have our sparks of hip-hop. So, like, different radio stations I used to listen to back in the day. AM radio was big for me. Like, there's a brother named Conan the Barbarian. He used to play on AM radio, and that was my first inkling. I'd make pause tapes listening to his radio show, me and my cousin. And it's funny because, you know, we're also West Indian heritage. So, you know, a lot of my early influences were calypso and soca music and reggae, as well as some go-go and hip-hop and soul. And so I always had a wide range of musical influence, but my early memories of hip-hop were making these pause tapes and learning how to cut on these little beat up kid version turntables that we used to have, where it's like the component, you had a tape player plus the record player on top. It's ridiculous. But anyway, we damaged a few of those trying to be DJs, and you know, it's just, I've always been into it, man. I always copy people's lyrics in my little notebook and, you know, write all my favorite MC songs. So, you know, I would say since about the age of maybe 9 or 10, I've been a hip-hop head, a junkie. You know, at that time, videos were everything, you know. So seeing people like Big Daddy Kane and Slick Rick and Dougie Fresh and Heavy D, seeing them on these videos just made me realize that, you know, this was a thing that was so much bigger than even I probably thought it would be back then, you know what I mean? And I remember the tapes that I used to have, like Salt and Pepper tapes, and you know, like like even the old early DJ tapes, like S&S and Kid Capri, and you know, so my earliest, I don't know what big event made it for me, but seeing Beat Street and Crush Groove for me was like, you know what I mean? It was, you know, Wild Style. Seeing movies like that just made me like really want to get into it, because I was never a break dancer. I was never a b-boy per se, but I always wanted to be, you know what I mean? I always wanted to break dance and do all of that. I just couldn't get it. That wasn't my thing. I was meant to rhyme, you know what I mean? When we first started, we were based out of Brooklyn, New York. We were a label called Seven Heads, which was led by Wes Jackson, who now runs the Brooklyn Hip Hop Festival. But back then it was just a label called Seven Heads, and we would do everything, man. We go out, we do all the radio shows. We did Stretcher by Beto. We did the Wake Up Show. When we went overseas, we did Tim Westwood. We did all of the radio, college radio, free shows, long road trips, no money. I did all of that to get, you know, I guess to get on. But it wasn't really in the aim of getting on. It was just like, we were already an independent label. We were already underground. So I don't think our bar was really high. We just wanted people to hear what we were doing. And it ended up spanning into all this other stuff. And I'm thankful for that. You know what I mean? My dad was just like, just go to school and do what you got to do. My mother was always like, keep going. So, you know, I didn't really have too much fight with my parents about it, though. It was just always something that I did in addition to the other things that I did. So I went to college, you know, I was still making music. When I got out of college was when we put our first single out, which was the Cosmology EP. That was in 97. And ever since then, I've just been putting music out and traveling. I remember, you know, calling my mom and being like, all right, Mom, I'm about to go to Japan for 2 weeks. Japan? What are you doing in Japan? Doing shows. Oh my God. You know, my dad would always be reluctant, like, oh, okay, you going back out there. Ironically enough, the first time my father saw me perform was maybe 10 years ago, and it was in Japan. It was in Tokyo. Never saw me perform in the States, never saw me in DC where we live. First time he saw me was in Japan, and he was super proud, man. So, you know, my parents, though, they were always supportive, you know. I work with the kids, man. You know, I work with a bunch of young people, and their energy, their view, I guess the way that they see the world, the conversations that we have, that keeps me young and fresh. And then, you know, getting them in the studio, helping them shape their stuff, helping them shape what they want to say, and how they deliver it and all of that. It just kind of keeps my sword sharp. But then also the dialogue and the conversations that I have with my peers. I run with a bunch of academics and people who are educators and who do youth work. And I think set aside from the fact that hip hop already keeps you young, I think working with children and working with the arts is another factor. So biggest challenge is just that whole, being put in the conscious, positive rapper box, I think has been somewhat of a hindrance, but I still make my music, man, and I don't apologize for it, you know what I mean? I feel like I'm providing the balance to what the dominant culture is giving us right now. I have to do what I'm doing in order for me to be a participant in this culture, in this art form. I have to do it the way that I do it, man, and I ain't changing. So I'm extremely proud that I've been able to travel all over the world and not only perform but work with different communities as a representative of hip hop culture. So when I go places, I'm not just going as Asheru the rapper. I'm going as Gabriel Ben, who created a literacy program using hip hop, who runs an after school programs and runs two companies aside from just being a MC and having an album coming out, etc. So I think that because of hip hop and because even with the Boondock stuff, it's just giving me an extra cachet that I can walk in places and do certain things to advance not only my career but to advance our culture. And I'm just happy to be able to do it. When people call me and say, I got a dissertation I'm writing, I want to interview you for my dissertation, or a college calls me and says they want me to come and speak, and then I end up polying a show behind the lecture, things like that, So I'm flexing my hip hop muscle everywhere I go, man. It's funny, man. At the end of the song "Soon Come," I say, "Soon come, we will witness a shift." I'm sorry, and at the end of Mood Swing, which is an old record, but to this day, those words ring true for me. It's almost every time I perform it, it gives me a chill, you know what I mean? Because this is the legacy that I want to leave. Soon come, we will witness a shift in consciousness, and black music is one of our greatest accomplishments. One day, our names will live on as monuments so that our kids can hold up their heads with confidence. That's when a nation will rise and realize that life without knowledge is death in disguise. The engine to my comprehension is just too complex. 1 minute from the next, go from happy to vex, we move swing. And that's really what I mean. I'm hoping that we do swing to a place where black music, hip hop culture can be held in a high esteem, and we won't have to fight what the media representation is of our story. We can tell our stories the way that we need to tell them, and hopefully that will live on,